Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our session tonight. I'm your host, Donumdu, and as you know, this is an information sharing platform where we talk about all things farming. And tonight, we're focusing on sunflowers. Today, we also have Tabile and Kunjana, who is an agricultural economist at the National Agricultural Marketing Council. And he's actually going to be joining us regularly on these spaces just to give some information from the economy of the specific crop, just to give that bit of perspective, not just hardcore farming and advice, but also a broader view for people who might not know you, who hasn't, tuned into any of the spaces that you've joined, a bit about yourself and your journey in agriculture.
My name is Tabile Ngunjana. I am an economist within the National Agricultural Marketing Council in Pretoria. I've been busy with farming myself even before I began the journey of being an economist. So I have a couple of things that I'm doing, but I'm more on the livestock part of things, even though that I'm hoping that soon I'm going to be getting into the crop or field crop production. So farming as an economist is something that I began when I was doing my undergrad in Fort Hare before I went to postgrad in Stellenbosch, where I'm still at. So we are busy working with the number of stakeholders from the industry all over South Africa and even with the sub-region of the SADC. We are busy in that space. That is my work in a nutshell. And also I'm just an economist, as I said, but mostly I'm doing analysis or monitoring what is happening in the global space within the grains, oilseeds, and the livestock, because that industry is actually linked to the oilseeds generally. So that is partly what I'm doing, and also within the reports that we are doing, of course, we are doing those with the other guys that are within the agricultural space.
Thank you so much, Tabile. And I think I say this all the time. I think you have a wealth of knowledge to share, and I do appreciate you always being willing to join this platform and share your knowledge and experience, but more so your perspective of not only, agriculture within South Africa, but Africa and globally. So thank you so much for that. My other guest is Mtumkulu, and he is going to just tell us a bit about what he does, where he's based, obviously farms with sunflowers and other crops. If you can just tell us a bit about yourself and where your journey started, what got you to fall in love with agriculture and be in this amazing dynamic space.
My name is Mzansi from Senegal, in the Free State, the Thabo Mofokeng district, in the Setsoto local municipality. I'm a second generational farmer. Yes, I studied market management. I joined my dad on the farm. So we are based in Senegal, doing 1,000 hectares there of mixed in sunflower, maize, and soyas. And we also do poultry and layers. And then we recently started our own feedlot as the second black farmer in the Free State owning a feedlot, a multiple award winner. The other awards are next week. So let's hope for the best.
Thank you so much. I love it. I think for me, we don't do that enough, do we? We don't celebrate our journey in the sector, the recognition that we've received from the industry. Thank you so much for that, and all the best with the awards next week. Now, tonight we're talking sunflowers, and sunflowers, as I understand it, can be produced in most parts of Mzansi. But I maybe want to start by asking both the farmer and the agricultural economist on this space really how profitable it is. Let's start with you, Tabile. What do you think in terms of if it's profitable, if it's viable for farmers to get into?
Presently, sunflower is one of those crops that is doing pretty well. And that, of course, has to do with what has happened in the Black Sea region, particularly with the issue with the Ukraine and Russia invading that country. So sunflower at the moment is such a profitable crop. Even looking into the numbers not so long ago, in terms of what the prospects for the coming season looks like for farmers that are within that, particularly from South Africa, I think it is going to be a relatively good season again, given that, for example, Ukraine has seen like a drastic decrease from a production that they normally do. The projections, they're looking around something like 51 million ton, and which is very low compared to a 57 point something million that you normally get. So it looks like it's going to be even a bigger year. Well, not necessarily bigger, but it's going to be an okay year, given that there's an issue with the fertilizers at the global space for the guys that are within the maize production. I think that, of course, is going to have a lot of an impact, because a couple of farmers would possibly projected to move from maize production into oilseeds, and that is something that has been vocal from the farmers in the US. And I think in South Africa, going to the coming season, which starts in October, I think we're going to see that from some farmers moving from maize to soya bean, sunflower, all the vegetable seeds. So I think at the moment there is still gonna be a very good, market for it, including Europe, which is currently going through some difficulties because they normally buy rapeseed opposite to sunflower, but the current economic situation there is allowing them to stick with sunflower or even palm oil, which is viewed as a normally lower crop compared to other sunflower seeds. So I think going forward, we've seen records in terms of the tons that are being sold and also the amount that the sunflower ton is sold at. So I think for farmers, it's relatively going to be a bigger year. And of course, there are some significant countries that are going through some droughts in Europe and other than the economic issues. So for South Africa, which is going to receive a relatively larger crop this year, I think that is going to be a good one for them going to the 2022-2023 marketing season.
Thanks, Tabile. I think you've given us a really good overview in terms of what the industry looks like, and I'm also very eager or happy to hear about the opportunities, for the export markets. Mtukulo, what is your take as a farmer? Do you have the same experience, and what has your experience been since you started farming with this specific crop? And also, what your experience has been in terms of profitability?
Sunflower, if managed correctly, is currently one of the most profitable commodities top line, and high level oil prices boost the profit. And I've been planting sunflower for over 10 years.
Tabile, I know that you're not a farmer, so I don't want to bombard you with the more technical questions, but maybe we can talk about, yield and more about the harvesting process and the possibilities in terms of production for this crop. Because obviously the seeds are harvested to make oil. What does that market look like? Maybe you can give us some perspective on also in terms of what the yield potential is for specific areas, because as I understand it, sunflowers can range from about 2,500,000 to 3,500,000 per hectare. So maybe just some perspective on that.
I think at the moment we are having some relatively good rains, which are normally a good thing when you're in farming. So I think that's one thing that is gonna be boosting, the yields in general. But of course, it's gonna always be affected by the varieties that the farmers are gonna be using within their production. But in general, I think yields at the moment, they are being pointed at the relatively good margins, which is, I think, is the one thing that also boosted the previous season because of the rains, as I've said earlier, that we have experienced some relatively nice rains for the past 2-3 seasons. Of course, this year again, still good projections as to that the country is going to get another good rain. So I think when it comes to the yields, we are in a much better space. So I don't think that should be a problem. Now, as far as the regions, I think, of course, the Free State guys, the Northwest, they are the guys that are normally, dominating when it comes to sunflower production. So at the moment, the numbers that are coming through, they are projecting a relatively good production season again this time around. So I think for farmers, that should be something that should be very positive. Then I'm not gonna get into the other technicalities that a typical farmer would be able to, unfortunately, because that is not a space that I normally operate on. Perhaps I think maybe the farmers that are within the space would probably be in a much better position to dwell more on that. I'm not sure if Tim Kula's back or other farmers can be able to just chip in there and add a little bit more technical aspects than what I've done.
Thanks so much, Tabile. Besides the fact that we've given an overview of the industry, maybe we can talk a bit more about markets. I think you mentioned it briefly, but just to give a little bit more insight as to where farmers could possibly export to, Tabile, if they're considering producing this crop, and also, the opportunities with the agro-processing. What are farmers actually doing with this crop specifically?
So with regards to exporting, so sunflower it can be used for a number of resin products for human consumption, and then also used for animal feed. And South Africa, we produce more than enough to consume, at least within the human consumption part of things. Import, of course, the one that is used particularly for animals, but even that is not very huge compared to sunflower seed, and that is normally used for mainly for chicken or like poultry in general. So when it comes to exports, I think we as a country, we are not necessarily influentially exporter, but we do export some quantities specifically to countries, our neighbors. Namibia, I think, is one of the biggest markets that South Africa sells to. Lesotho, Mozambique, Zim, and Botswana. Even, of course, for crude oil that is we are getting from the sunflower, it also goes to the same countries that I've mentioned. So we are relatively, actually, we are the second biggest in Africa to sell after Mozambique. Mozambique is quite a bigger player even globally. So yeah, South Africa is relative up there, but we are not very much of a bigger player. Even though, I mean, this year a thing that is also has to do with what I've mentioned earlier about the recent years being bullish in terms of the prices, and also farmers moving into sunflower and other vegetable seed production because of the current situations. So we are actually seeing that sunflower was one of the crops that did very well within the second quarter of this year in terms of our exports. That is, we have managed to get a lot of earnings through our exports of sunflower seed. And that, I think, is something that I think we're going to see up until next year and around the second quarter again, because I mean we are only going to be getting more and deeper into that market coming months, and also going to be planting for it, of course, for the coming season. So it is relatively a very good crop for one to enter into, and South Africa, of course, is getting to produce a good quality of the crop, even though we have like larger producers. But our crops, as it is the case actually for wheat, we tend to get some products that are relatively of good quality, and that is actually talking for the country into the global space, because we tend to get this nice quality. So it is looking good. I think I can say that. Even though, of course, it's going to depend on the number of things, but generally, sunflower itself, I think it is going to continue doing better until at least next season. That is my assumption, but of course, that is based on the numbers that I've seen, because there's not enough. At least we are seeing like the production is actually lower than the past 5 years that we've seen globally, and that majorly, of course, has to do with what has happened in Ukraine and Russia. So there is going to be a demand for it. And of course, countries like the ones that normally buy into it, we are going to see them buying. I've spoken to some farmers in Malawi, for an example. They were complaining about the drought. So Malawi is another country that tends to have some nice quantities of that. But of course, if they don't, then it's an advantage for South Africa, because we've already seen that we have good numbers. And of course, there is still a demand for the crop into the region, and of course, to the global space.
Thank you so much, Tabile, and thanks so much for carrying the space. So let's get into, to optimize yield, farmers stress that factors such as soil types, soil depth, tillage, pH, soil fertility, and fertilization, climate, rainfall, cultivar selection. There's a range of things to consider, including pest control and plant population. But maybe we can start with the best soil type for this crop, Mtumkulo, just to give us an overview of that.
Free State, Senegal, a very dry area, and sunflower, one of its major things that it likes is the sun. So in Senegal, we have a lot of sun, and my type of soil is sandy loam. Our plant population there in Senegal is 48,000 seeds a hectare, and then our rainfall per annum is at 750 per year. So our tillage practice is we do minimum till. Normally we'll start, let's say, disking or putting a roll moor. We reap for sunflower at something like 30. The seed bed preparation, and then just when the moisture is good, like sunflower, you plant it at the matches box, kind of like centimeters when it's lying on a table. And then the best thing is just to get your sunflower out of the soil as quick as possible, because if you can get rain, let's say in 3 days, more rain, then the surface of your soil, it's bound to compact, and that the sunflower alone doesn't like, because it grows in a way like a bean, like its head looking down. Before then, just after the drain, you need to put, we call it a roller, just to break the hard layer of the soil on top so that it can germinate. If there's anything any farmer can tell you is, for you to plant sunflower, you're going to be one of the best farmers, because with sunflower, you can plant 3 times and then still not get it up. So you got to be accurate. with your planting dates, your moisture on the soil, everything well done, and the soil well prepared. And the costs are too much now, like looking at the fertilizer price is so high, and then all the methods, and now these rainfalls are so too much, and then now at least they have invented now these drones for spraying and everything. Because after you planted, you're gonna put immediately your pre-emerge, and then after 7 days your sunflower must be up. And then if it's not up, then as a farmer, you're going to decide whether you're going to replant, of which is now an extra cost. And then my average yield in Senegal on sunflower is at 1.4 tons a hectare. So for me, in order to make money, I need to have something like 1.4 ton. And then any extra, it's a bonus. But you're going to top dress your sunflower. You're going to take care of your crop. You're going to attend it every day and look if there's any other diseases or what that you need to attend to quickly. Because let me tell you, if you can be hit by a sclerotin on sunflower, you can easily harvest nothing because it's going to fall off because of the crop rot. The other issue again on the sunflower is it needs more sun. And it's better to plant your sunflower together because the more your inter-row spacing or intra-row spacing, it's wide. Now you're going to have this big crops of which by the time they're gonna bow down, they're gonna put a lot of water at the back, and then now that's where your crop rot is gonna start. This is a very fragile kind of a cultivar, but with sunflower, like looking this year, we have a biggest movement on the sunflower price. I just don't remember the day, but of 750 somewhere there, of which farmers by then who took contracts on that day, they sold their sunflower at 11,600 a ton. So looking at the yield and the price I managed to fix, that was one of my best years in sunflower year ever to come. And but just to get that crop out of the soil to germinate, sunflower is something. So you need to be a very attentive person to attend your field every day and deal with any issue as soon as possible.
Congratulations on your recent harvest. You've shared so much information. You've actually responded to a lot of my questions. But maybe we can just recap. I think from what you're understanding, it is a very sensitive crop and you have to keep close watch and you have to be attentive, like with most farming, operations. But once you have it down, it's definitely viable. So I think that's what I'm understanding from what you're saying. Let's talk about the best time to plant this crop. Do you agree that planting, in the beginning of November to the end of December, specifically in the eastern areas, can be extended to mid-January in the western areas? Is this the best time for farmers who's just starting out, Mtumkulo?
Don, the best time for us in the Eastern Free State and the eastern part is to plant sunflower early November as possible. For you to make money in sunflower, prepare your fields in time. November first rains, 15 mil, you plant your sunflower. Because by then you're going to harvest, let's say April, and that's when the prices are high on sunflower. You tend to make a lot of money by then. And let me tell you, with sunflower, if you plant late, let me tell you, I've tried it. I've planted in January, after the 15th of January, after the cutoff date. Like I harvested zero point 0.5 ton a hectare. So let me tell you, good planting date, good yields. If you are late, let it go, let it go. Because now you're going to have the seedlings there, others won't have any food or anything, like in the center of the crop. Only the crops on the outer side of the crop are going to be filled. So sometimes it's worth stopping rather than wasting and doing more damage and running more loss. Because once you get, let's say, your first colds in our free state there, May, we getting frost. By then, if your sunflower is still blooming, like you won't harvest anything. And sunflower, it's light on its own, so you need weight. You need your crops to be filled, your kernels.
Thanks for that. I think you've given us a lot to think about and a lot to consider. Let's talk about irrigation methods and water use. What should farmers understand to optimize production from day one?
For crop protection on sunflower, like on something like a hectare, your bend down, your pre-measure and your post-emerge, it's roughly 450 on a hectare. And then your fertilizer, your planting mixture, and the vet on transport. Let's say per hectare to plant sunflower today, it's gonna cost you almost 9,200. And looking at the price is now sitting, let's say, at 10,000. So a ton of sunflower on a hectare that you planted on 9,000, it's a profit of, let's say, 1,000. So you gonna noma kanjani harvest something like 1.5 upwards, or like you are just doing it for fun. And like after you planted, your post-image dates and your spraying dates, the weather conditions, everything, you're gonna take care of that, because some of us will be spraying on dry soils and then we are wasting our herbicide.
Thanks so much. Tabile, I see your hand is up. Would you like to contribute?
I think there's one thing that is very profound that he has mentioned about one being able to understand the area and also the right time for one to plant a particular crop. There has been a move. I mean, even in South Africa last year, I think a lot of farmers have planted relatively later or from a different time than they will normally plant. And that, of course, it has to do with relatively nice weather for one to plant. And that is something I think that is changing a little bit across South Africa. I've seen, like in Eastern Cape, where I'm coming from, a number of farmers who actually got a relatively good crop were surprised, and they planted very late this year for maize, for an example. So, of course, it differs from plant to plant. It's important that one understand the crop that one want to get into, because it will help you in terms of not losing money. Because, I mean, it's relatively expensive, especially now. If we are to plant a crop that you're not going to be able to see the returns on it, it is going to be very costly and actually end up demotivating some farmers. Might be look for something else, but at the moment, I think it's wise to choose a crop that you think is going to give you some relatively nice returns. And sunflower at the moment, they are doing that. So the timing is very important. I mean, of course, now it's only September, but soon we're going to be beginning summer production in South Africa. So I think for farmers, it's wise for one to be able just to look into what he or she wants. If it's a sunflower, I mean, Tumkulu is of course an example that one can always look up to. Into. I mean, there's one thing that I know about farmers. They are very friendly people, so it's easy to talk to one that has already been there. And given the experience that he has, I think he's going to be able to give one farmer like a relatively nice information about when and how and what you need in terms of the production. But of course, this varies from area to area. As I've mentioned, that province that is normally dry mostly. But of course, we do produce a variety of field crops, including some vegetable, particularly soya bean. So I just wanted to pop that up for some of us who want to venture into, because it's something that I'm also looking at in terms of production, but not the marketing side of things.
Thanks, Tabile. I think you make a very good point, and I think this is definitely a platform and space for us to be able to share knowledge and gain knowledge, and also connect with people that may have more experience than we do on a specific crop. And I agree with you, Mtumkule has a lot of experience. Let's just move over to harvesting quickly. What is the best time to harvest once you're planted? Should one start as soon as 80% of the sunflower heads are brown? Because I did some research and found out that that is what you should do, because it will minimize losses caused by birds. Is this your experience as well, Mtumkulu?
Once it starts getting few heads brown, you need to harvest. Like your moisture, don't let your moisture be less than 9%. Because if you harvest your sunflower, let's say at 11 up, they start charging you at a silos or the co-op where you're going to deliver for drying cost and everything. Harvest your sunflower most at 10. It's gonna have to be quick, because the drier it gets, you lose weight. It's number one. Like roughly 5 to 10% on sunflower weight a day drying. And then also when you harvest it too dry, it's more risky, because even the combine can be bent from it, because it's so oily and now it's dry. And if it can get just a spark or something on your combine, your harvester can easily be bent. So on commodities, we make money on tons and weight. Just below moisture and penalization, and then you'll make money on your sunflower.
I think I missed one step before this, specifically around the harvesting part. What type of machinery does one need? What is the method for harvesting? And how much does that cost, more or less? Because I know that type of investment in infrastructure does cost a lot of money. So if you're doing it on a small scale, is that possible at all? I just want to kind of get an idea of that, Mtumkulu.
On a harvester, on a hectare on sunflower, you can use 26 liters to 25 liters depending on your type of machinery. That's your fuel cost. And then you're going to have your transport depending on where your delivering point is. You gotta take and do your budgeting very well so that I'm with Famsol producing for Sioko and where like everything straightly goes for processing. I'm delivering my sunflower right from the farm straight to Gauteng. The differential, everything. So I need to do my figures well. And then like we are close to meets in Bethlehem on the side of the eastern where they have the oil seed plant. So for us, sunflower that side is got many points and it's a bit profitable. And you just gonna have to market your product well and do your 4 Ps very well.
Thanks so much. My last point would be around the process, but I think you've explained that you just hand over your crop, you don't necessarily do the other processing. But how does one actually make the sunflower oil if you're doing it on your own? Is that something that's viable for farmers to get into, to set up a plant? How does that work exactly?
One farmer there, my neighbor, Senegal, they have their own company there by the place called Stainsres, whereby they do their own sunflower. And like recently, most of people now learn that how farming affects their day-to-day life because by then a cooking oil a liter was 2 liter, let's say 45 rand. Nobody noticed. But now the 2 liter is at 100 rand. People could notice that there's something in the market that is happening and now is even starting to affect consumers. By so people learning and seeing how valuable or what role does farming play to each one's life every day, from close to everything is farming. Once you close any market, you make money. It's your product, you planted it, you process it, and then you sell it processed. You are cutting all costs. There's no middleman, there's no storage facilities, there's no handling fees, there's no marketing cost because all now you're gonna sell on your one batch. Let's say your profit rate can rise from that commodity over 40 to 50%, but with somebody who just delivers, his profit is roughly there 30%.
Thanks so much, Mtamkulo. I think you definitely need to come back and talk about this topic again. I think you're also getting some love here in the tweet, so thank you so much for being here. Final comments from our speakers just to wrap up. So we're going to end a little bit earlier than we usually do. But for now, I just like to thank my speakers once again. Thanks, Tabile, for kind of standing ground while Mtamkulo was trying to figure out his network. But maybe just Tabile, one more comment from your side, general comments around marketing this crop, again, for people who may have missed it in the beginning. And also just, echoing what we were saying before, that it is profitable once you get it under your wing and you kind of understand how to make it work for you.
For farmers, I would suggest that I would assume that the ones that are here, they are into the sunflower seed production. If you manage to get your production right, as Tim Kule said, I think we are already in the right direction because I think at the moment, this is one crop that is kind of doing well. And also because it's being supported by the other ones that are normally, like, for example, a substitution that is very close to it. It is canola, and we have seen like a number of countries. Germany, for an example, is one of those countries that tend to do well there, but it's not doing so nice these recently. Actually, it even bought like a lot of sunflower from South Africa, and I think those are dynamics that are sort of shaping the market at the moment. And it looks like it's gonna be like that for a minute. I even received some information from China not so long ago today. I think that country is actually going through some times in terms of their production as well. So those are countries that have very powerful influence on the global market. And at the moment, even though one is from a South African country that is normally smaller there, but it is still gonna be a good year if one gets his production right, and then of course and harvesting so that he can be able to get that good quality at the end of the day, which is something that you normally could have in South Africa. I think for all the farmers there, they're gonna be having a nice season again. Hopefully they get their production right, of course.
Thanks so much, Tabile. Ndumkulo, just your final word on this crop and this product?
I'm gonna give a rough plus or minus cost per hectare on sunflower. Like for crop protection on your bend down, it's gonna be roughly 490 pre-mesh, 346 a hectare. For post-emerge, something like 1099, and then crop protection total per hectare will be 2000. And then for fertilizer, top dressing at 100 grams per hectare, plenty mixture, and the vet and transport, you're gonna run at something like 2,500 just on fertilizer. And then now The harvest in total, if you are using somebody's harvester, it's going to cost you 26 liters, like I said earlier, of diesel with today's price, and the transport, everything is going to be roughly at 870 a hectare. And then the crop insurance at 5%, so it's going to be roughly 525 a hectare. And your seed is going to cost you 720 a hectare. So for mechanization cost, like this king per hectare will be 18 liters, rape 22 liters, seed bed preparation 16 liters, conventional planting 15 liters a hectare, top dressing 7 liters a hectare. And then bend down spray 6 liters of diesel a hectare, pre-mess spray 6 liters of diesel a hectare, and post-mess spray 6 liters a hectare. So you're gonna end up at 2,496. And then the grand total for a hectare of sunflower this season, we are looking at 9,100. So anything that you should harvest should be over a ton for you to make profit. So your direct cost of 9,100, getting a good price, let's say of 11,000, you are already sitting on 1 ton, like 2,000 profit or so, 1 point something, and then all the other extras, and then that's your profit. And you gotta make sure that the sunflower germinates, because replanting, it's a loss. Just to plant again, go on the same field and do everything over again, then it's a loss.
Mdumkulu, I think you've given us a lot to think about. I think you've given us a clear outline to all the farmers who may be interested in this crop, a world of knowledge. And I'm so happy to be able to have had you on the session.
I've covered everything on the input cost side, and you as a farmer taking care of your crop and being there every day.
Definitely. Thank you so much, sir. We're going to wrap up the session. I do apologize for the network once again, but it will be available on Food for Mzansi's YouTube channel. If you missed any parts of the session, there's also going to be a detailed article on this topic. And like I mentioned, I'm definitely considering doing a part 2 on this with our other speakers that were also invited, and we'll also hopefully come to Mkulo back some of our main events and do some highlights on it as well. Have a great evening, everyone. All the best with your farming endeavors, and have a lovely day.